And Jazakallah khair, Sister Fatima, for such a generous introduction. SubhanAllah. Each one of us, I think, is a super mom here. We're all trying to, okay, it says Allah, yeah. We're all trying to multitask, juggle with our responsibilities, our passions, and just being able to tick all the boxes, right? Maximize on our potential, learn from each other. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the tawfiq to be able to benefit from today's beneficial information. Ameen. So, without further ado, we'll dive straight into today's topic, which is a very interesting and a very important one as well. However, I wouldn't say it's something new, something that you wouldn't have ever heard of before. It's one of those. It's one of those that you would have heard almost everyone talking about and emphasizing upon the importance of it as well. However, still, most of us know what we need to do, why we need to do, but we still don't do it. And there are many reasons for why we don't do what we know is going to be beneficial for us to, inshallah, uphold our relationships, not only for the sake of ourselves, but for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to begin the conversation on that note, I think it's very important for me to highlight today that the reason why we get married, mostly people are deluded, I would say, or confused in thinking that we get married for the sake of each other. But that's completely wrong. In Islam, the only reason why we get married is to satiate each other physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, mainly, so that we can establish a deeper connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and create a safe space. Relationship essentially is that safe space where our generation can thrive. It's like a little garden full of roses and flowers and beautiful smells, where our little children can play around and thrive, and we can nurture them in the righteous manner, so that we can strengthen our ummah. So if that is the main intention of getting married for the sake of Allah, and to develop a deeper connection with Allah, to raise pious ummah, strengthen the ummah, then of course the rewards for that would also be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm not saying that don't seek acknowledgement from your other half, of course, that goes without saying. However, many times it does happen that we try to put all our eggs in the same basket and stop seeking out and reaching out to Allah, but start expecting from our other half. And that's not wrong in a sense. Essentially, it is wrong. But on the surface of it, or apparently it's not wrong, reason being, because we're conditioned that way to rely on external validation. So until and unless we don't stop relying on external validation and focusing on developing our paradigm as such, whereby the focus is inside out. So look for validation within you, because that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lives, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so Rahim, so Kareem, so forgiving, all merciful. So why can we not, start reliving from the perspective of making a shift in our paradigm, and rather than relying on external influences, conditioning and acknowledgement, why not rely on internal acknowledgement, rather than confronting ourselves. We need to stop confrontation and focus more on carefrontation, and stop beating ourselves. We're all humans. We're prone to making mistakes. We have made mistakes in the past. We will continue to do so. However, that does not mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to close the doors of His mercy and forgiveness upon us. So there is no reason why we should, confront ourselves and beat ourselves around the bush too much. All you need to do is just sit back, relax, take one step to move 10 steps forward. And in that moment of reflection, just make an intention, think where you went wrong, what could you have done in order to improve that situation, and where was Allah and His guidance? Did you seek Allah's guidance in all of that process where you are right now? If not, then obviously you've missed a big piece. And when you start on the wrong foot, obviously you know that we'll be ending on the wrong foot as well. So yeah, you need to take one step back and press that reset button, make clear, new, pious, pure intentions, and then go forward with full speed, I'd say. So, inshallah, without further ado, let's begin with our today's topic. I'm just going to share a little presentation with you. So, alhamdulillah. So now, as you can see, sisters, and feel free to unmute yourself and, give me a shout, because I want this to be as interactive as possible. So I will keep on bouncing off questions. And I'd love for you to communicate with me and give me the answers. There is no judgment. There is no wrong answer. All the answers are right and correct. Why? Because that's how you perceive your world, right? And whatever you perceive, that's how you will project it. So that's your world. It's your choice, your understanding, your perception, your answers. They can't be wrong. And my choice, my perception, my understanding, my knowledge is based on the world, my worldview, right? So that's not wrong. So, and that's a very, very important point actually that I've made here, specifically when it comes to, non-effective communication or no communication whatsoever between spouses, that each one of us are trying to point, score and bicker and try to, validate ourselves. And yes, so that's what we're doing day in and day out, not realizing that none of you are really wrong in this, just that each person has their own perception based on their worldview. So you could agree to disagree, right? You could disagree to disagree, but there's a way of going about it rather than pointing out fingers at each other and, throwing a fit that I'm not being heard, I'm not being understood, this person doesn't know who I am, he's not bothered, and so on and so forth. And we women are really, really great at, winding our own self, going on in spirals, building it up, layering it on thick, and then making a big, huge cannonball and throwing it on our men. And as we go along further into our presentation, we will see that, how women operate and process information, how we come across, how we make a mountain out of it. Yeah, somebody wanted to say something? Okay, so yeah, as we go further into the presentation, we will be talking about that as well, how men are wired and how women are wired differently, how we process information, how we express our emotions and concerns, and how men do it differently. And so yeah, inshallah. So right now on the screen, you can see that, there's one hand on the right which says you, and on the other hand is the relationship, right? And in the middle, as you can see, is communication. So what that means is that's how important communication is, right? Communication is essentially the gap between you and your relationship. So that's what this picture essentially means. The communication is that gap between yourself and your relationship, right? So if we have to build that gap, we need to make our communication strong and effective and bridge that gap so that you and your relationship come closer and you weave in together like that. Okay. So now, right now we'll be talking about ego states. At times, you would have thought to yourself that whenever I'm trying to have a conversation with my other half, now I'd constantly keep on saying my husband, because I believe we're sisters here, most of us, in fact, all of us. So rather than, so constantly you'll hear me saying my husband, because we're all wives here or sisters, women here, essentially. So you would have, many a times you would have contemplated thinking about, whenever I'm sharing information with my husband, 1 minute he's fine, the other minute he just becomes he goes over the top and he just kicks off, and I just feel as though, do I even know who he is, and why does he flip ever so often? I don't see no predictability, I don't see no pattern, there's no stability. 1 minute hot, 1 minute cold, 1 minute warm, 1 minute hot. What's going on? Is this the person who was like, oh, lovey-dovey and nice and loving and caring towards me an hour ago, and I've now tried to take benefit of that, care that I've given out to him, and in return he's become all lovey-dovey and he's caring and he's willing to listen, and now I've said something to him and in return he's become all hot-headed. What happened there? We can't just fathom, we can't get our heads around thinking what happened, and we just feel as though, oh, We weren't expecting this, number one. We start thinking we don't deserve this, number two. And so then again, the blame game starts there, right? However, it's got nothing to do with that person's personality. It's about the different ego states that we use when we communicate with each other. As you can see, there are three different ego states that we use in our communications or transactions with other people. Well, right now we're focused about our spouse, okay? Because that's what the topic is all about. Three different ego states. The first one being the parent, right? The parent is the caregiver, the love giver to us. And obviously, when we talk about parents as a child, now we've grown older, we've become adults. Back then, it's rooted in the past. So we're talking about our parents and we as a child, right? Now we're adults, so we're talking about the past. So the parent ego as a caregiver is rooted in the past. Now, child is the care receiver or the caretaker, and again, that's rooted in the past. And now we're adults, right? So when we use our adult ego, we're focused more on giving advice. We're more practical, we're more pragmatic. We'll be able to put things into perspective and use our logic, logic and science and knowledge and theology and whatever, we'll be thinking about it, and then we use our rationale essentially, and then we become an advice giver, and we give a balanced view, or we'll take a balanced approach in our conversation. However, when we're using a child ego state in our conversation, depending upon how we were raised, how we've learned to receive love, that's how our child ego state is going to come across, and we'll be covering that in the next slide, so don't get confused, right? Okay. And then at times, many a times, because growing older, as we all know, from the age of 0 till 6, this is the most important stage of our lives. In our Pakistani community, we think, they're not even 6 yet, or they're probably 6 or 7 years old. Oh, they're quite young at the moment, we don't take much notice of them. They don't know nothing. They don't understand anything. We'll be shouting the house down in front of them. However, minimizing their identity, although this, we're nullifying and minimizing the fact that this is the most important age and stage of their life that they're going through. And their brains are like sponges. They're literally absorbing each and every small little thing that is said and things that aren't said. So essentially, even the toxic negative vibes, they're going to be absorbing those. Children are very, very receptive, subhanAllah. So we need to be, as parents, very, very mindful what kind of information we're disseminating when we've got children around us, right? So moving forward, now we have a very interesting picture here. So at the top, as you can see, there's a critical parent, right? So CP on the left, top left, that's critical parent. So how would a critical parent, or what kind of an ego state would a critical parent have? They'd be moralistic, or morals all the time. They'd be judgmental. They'd be more authoritarian, right? So if that's how your parents were when you were small, that's how your parents were, then what kind of an upbringing are you going to have? You'll become rebellious, right? Either you're going to become rebellious, and what that means is you'll become defiant and you'd be complaining all the time because there's a mismatch of expectations. There's a mismatch in the way that your parents are giving out love to you, and then the way that you're receiving love, personality wise, that's not who you are, and you're not used to receiving love like that, and you're feeling upset, you're feeling hurt the way your parents are coming across to you. So there'll only be two ways, you'd go. Either you'd become rebellious or you'll become adaptive of that environment, right? So if you're very switched on and you're ready to say no to all of this that you're getting, this kind of love, this kind of behavior, this kind of nurturing that you're getting nurturing, if you say, from your parents, you'd either become defiant and you start complaining, you'll rebel, or you'll adapt to that environment and you'll become compliant, you'll become passive, okay? You just become like goats and sheep. So that's what that is. And on the other side, if your parenting is being one of very nurturing, very secure, very reassuring, very supportive, very encouraging, what kind of a child would you be? What kind of an adult would you become growing older? Of course you'd become a free child, you'd become curious because you've been given so much security, so much encouragement, so much support that you're able to use your cognitive dissonance. You're able to use your mind, you're able to use your modalities, submodalities in every way possible. Like a child, you're free, you're curious, you're energetic, you're fun loving, you're spontaneous. You've been given the opportunity to grow and enhance your mind and explore and be curious, tick all those boxes, right? Do all those naughty things that children love to do because they're little explorers, aren't they? So if that's the kind of parenting that you've received, obviously growing older as an adult now, you would be non-judgmental, you'll be open-minded, you'd be interested, in other people's business, you would give them an active ear, you'd be empathetic towards them, you'll be more confident, you'll be more reality focused, more reality based, you take a holistic approach, you'll weigh things up, and you'll be more emotionally resilient rather than just throwing a fit as a rebellious child would be. And now you've grown into an adult, you're still a rebellious adult, right? And if you've been an adapted child, compliant and passive, that's how you'd become as a grown up as well. So that's what this picture is essentially telling you: the importance of becoming a nurturing parent, being present with your children and not giving out love to them in an avoidant or a dismissive manner. Because when you do that, your child essentially becomes insecure. They'll either become passive and closed in and closed up, or they'll rebel. Okay, and both of them are not the right things to do. So growing older, when you become an adult, and when something, your wife is trying to give out love to you, but many a times the husband would only come around when he's got the physical desire, and we feel as though they're very mean. He just wants to tick that box, right? Do his thing and leave. Whereas we as women, we're so lovey-dovey, we like the element of touch, because that's from where we get our happy hormones kicked in. But if that same man, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us all in a unique manner with muhabba, love in our hearts. So there is no reason why he wouldn't be having that element of love and feeling and touchy and feeling, in him. However, that's not how he's been given out love by his parents. The way that he's received love, has been in an avoidant and dismissive way. So that's how he now is giving out love to you. Do you understand? So you need to understand from that person's world as well. They're not being mean, but that's what they're familiar with. They don't know any other. So you then need to become a nurturing parent when you pick up on signs and patterns after today, inshallah, after today's conversations. Start picking up on patterns and then evaluate, have a look, at what kind of an upbringing has your husband had, what kind of a family does he have, how is his relationship with his parents, how is his relationship with his siblings, how is the relationship of his parents with him and his siblings, do they give out love, how do they behave with you, how do they behave with your children? All of that then would help you to put things into perspective and not narrow down your options thinking, oh, he's a mean person, he does not do X, Y, and Z. Now that you've learned about these ego states, you would know why they become hot-tempered at times, because that's how their parents must have reacted in an XYZ situation. And if you're coming from a very reassuring and secure environment at home, from a nurturing parenting kind of an environment, then obviously you receive love in a good way. You're sharing love in a good way, but you're not being given love back in the same way. So then you feel that you've been minimized and you've been done wrong towards. However, that's not the case. The other person may also love you to bits just the way you love them, but the way that they reciprocate and come across is different, because that's what they're familiar with, right? Okay, so now we're going to be talking about complementary and cross transactions, or communication, if you like. So complementary is a win-win for both, when both parties agree with what they're talking about, and cross transaction, of course, is when you may agree to disagree or completely disagree to disagree. So we've got an example here right in front of you. So person A says, no, person one says, I noticed you went over budget on eating out this week. Can we talk about this? So what kind of an ego state, sisters, do you think that is? Child, adult, or parent ego?
Parent.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so it's a very balanced approach, So he says the person one is saying could be, in this case it's a man. So the man says, "Well, I've noticed you've gone over budget on eating out this week. Can we talk about this?" It's a very level-headed conversation. So they're showing their concern. They're not being judgmental. They're not shouting at you that I know you've gone over budget. Look at what the things you've bought. These are rubbish. Every time you buy something, it's you go and overspend, and it's good for nothing. So they're not minimizing you, right? They've just made a statement. It's not an opinion. It's just a statement, and they're open to exploring this further. So they're using essentially a very level-headed approach, very practical approach, and they're open-minded. So that's the adult ego there. Okay. And Sister Fatima, did you say parent?
No, there was another sister who kindly.
Okay, all right. Okay, so whichever sister said that, it's an adult ego that they're using. However, it's not a parent ego at this point in time, right? It could have been a parent ego. The fact that this person is using a level-headed approach, pragmatic approach, not being opinionated at all. My question to the same sister would be, what do you think? What kind of parenting has this adult received? Nurturing parenting or the other parenting, critical one, authoritarian one?
I think nurturing.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been given out love and security and nurturing parenting style. Hence, this adult today is very secure within themselves, and they're open-minded. They've given a clear statement here, and they want to know from their spouse that what's going on, rather than creating an opinion. So now we can see the answer at the bottom with person 2 saying, "Wow, you're right. I did get a little carried away this month. Will be more mindful next month." Or, "Yes, you're right. I wanted to talk to you about increasing our budget in this area." So again, they're exploring their options. But still, both these statements are very level-headed. So the answer, what do you think? The wife is wearing a child ego hat, adult ego hat, or a parent ego hat?
Adult as well, I think.
Adult as well, absolutely, because they're open-minded. They're willing to having a conversation and figure it out, and at the same time they're giving each other options as well. Okay, now we've got another example here of a difficult kind of a situation where it's more about being opinionated and a blame game, right? So person 1 says, the husband says, "I noticed you went over budget on eating out this week. Can we talk about this?" Yeah. So what adult ego, parent ego, or child ego state is this person using?
Adult.
Adult, absolutely. Again, because there is no judgment, and again, if you would have noticed, I did try to dodge you guys a bit by increasing my tonality there. So tone, body language is part of communication. So you can intimidate and overwhelm the other person, and they would get confused, although you just made a statement. You're not judging anybody. So if I had to say this in a way, "I noticed you went over budget on eating out this week. Can we talk about this, please?" So clearly you would have said, "Yeah, that's a level-headed statement. That's an adult ego." But the same statement, if my tonality gets increased and I'm saying, "I noticed you went over budget on eating out this week. Can we talk about this?" So that doesn't sound like an adult ego at all, just because the tonality got changed. However, it's still the adult ego, and it's about their personality style, how they come across when they get concerned. Yeah. Okay. So now the answer that we get here is, "What the F? Why are you checking my expenses?" So there's a child in them which is rebelling there. Can you see that, sisters?
Yes.
Yeah. And so then, if we had to reverse this child ego hat and convert it into an adult ego hat, what kind of answers could we expect? Anybody? Can you reverse engineer this statement? Convert it into an adult ego. We did share an example earlier on.
So you will respond as an adult by saying, "Okay, let's look at it, and we'll see what we can do, whether we can increase the budget or not."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'd be more reasonable in terms of the response, not
Yeah.
reactive.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. A level-headed approach, more proactive rather than reactive. Yeah. So that's what we need to do. And that's exactly what's happening in situation to situation. A person's attitude may vary. That doesn't mean the person is wrong. Now, what that means is, you need to look into at a deeper level about how were they parented at home, and yeah. Okay, going forward, now we've established that these are the different ego states that men and women use to communicate with each other, right? Now, say for example, if something goes wrong in a woman's world, man has said something, your husband said something or did something that you're really upset about, and then you're kicking off, right? Many times that issue may be a very minor issue, a non-issue really, but we make a mountain out of a molehill. Why? Because a woman just wants to feel safe. She wants to be heard. She wants to feel wanted. She wants to feel loved, right? She appreciates and adores that sense of touch from the man, right? So when she doesn't get that, she just amplifies the whole thing. So if a man is intelligent enough, and if he feels that, okay, I might have done something wrong, at this point in time, we're not even looking at the fact that whether it was a minor mistake or a big mistake. We're just looking at he did something which has now made the wife upset. So what is the wife's expectation right now, and how can he deal with it? What is the wife feeling right now? How can he deal with it? Okay. Later on, we'll deal with whether the problem was small or big. That comes at a later point when both the parties are ready to communicate. Then we need to, untangle the strings, and then, use our level-headed approach, adult ego, when we start a communication, an adult ego approach, and then we see, okay, right, this is what I said, this is what you said, this is what I thought, this is what you thought, because the communication was broken. It wasn't effective enough that we could understand exactly what the other person meant. Hence, we just threw ourselves off the tangent. But now, as it stands out to be, the woman is cross, right? Now, why is she cross? She's trying to communicate, say something to him, but he's not willing to listen. He's back chatting, he's blaming. Both the parties are trying to point score. It's not going to work, right? So a woman specifically, for you sisters, you need to understand, we need to take control of our emotions. It's a build up. At times the situation is not as bad as we make it sound. We try to go round and round and round in circles and layer it on as thick as possible, because we're trying to quench our build up over time, just because we felt that we haven't been made to feel wanted and loved and reassured and acknowledged, enough. And it's going to build up every time we say something. We expect something. It's not given to us, the way that we were expecting. So we're giving out love. We're giving out care in an X manner, in a more nurturing manner, in a more secure manner. But most of the times we don't receive it in the same way. And many a times we'll just be quiet on it, because our the culture essentially asks us to do sabr, 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 whereas that's not right. Of course, it depends. We can't. We have to weigh it out properly. The pros and cons of the whole situation. We can't be breaking our homes. Getting divorces every now and then, that's not what marriage is all about. And we can talk about it, inshallah, in our future sessions. More than happy to facilitate. However, at this point in time, just trying to make you understand that, because we've been through so much pressure already, from the husband, from the in-laws, from our parents, from the community, so much name shame, that we feel as though we're being overburdened. And then it doesn't help, because there's a build up and build up and build up, and when one small little thing goes wrong, that's it. It gets amplified in our heads. So what we need to understand is that, was that problem a big enough problem for us to react that way, or is it just a build up? Many a times it happens that because husband said something, we just go on off a tangent. We'll go and tell our kids off, we'll hit them. Essentially, it comes out on somebody else, either our elderly parents or our children, more than likely. Or God forbid, if we're that stupid that, we're going to go and cause ourselves harm. But these are the different ways how we, went essentially. So we need to step back and relax and take a deep breath and think, is the problem that big, or is it just a build up? Is it the fact that I'm not being listened to, I'm not being given enough importance in the house, my authority is being minimized or even undermined? Is it one of those, or is it this specific problem in time that is so, important for me that I'm making a big hue and cry out of it? So you need to evaluate the situation, right? And yeah, so if you're just trying to build it up, go round and round in circles, amplifying things, that's not how you are going to get your desired result, which is you want to be listened. You will not be listened that way by a man, because that's not how men are designed or wired, right? Uh, the more men try to minimize us, be quiet, no, you're wrong, no, you did this, you did that, they don't listen to us. The more they try to minimize us, the more we're going to get amplified. Do you understand? So they need to, at that point in time, be quiet, even if we're wrong or they're wrong. We're not even talking about that. Just as a goodwill gesture towards your wife, she's upset. So what do you need to do? If you want her to minimize and calm down, you need to listen to her, give her an active ear, maybe cuddle her, hug her, kiss her, make her feel safe. What would then happen is that through this process, she'll be able to release the oxytocins, specifically with that touch element, the feel-good hormones, the estrogen, as well as the oxytocin. When those get released in our body, because hormones play a very important role, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way of keeping us calm and safe in a situation. Otherwise, as women, subhanAllah, especially when we're on our monthly cycle, we just go over the top. We'll be running out in the grounds and, whatnot. We'll be shouting at people, shouting at children, shouting at anybody who comes our way. So this is, the power of hormones Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given us to keep our body, mind in balance. So don't undermine that. Keep checking in. Are my dates closer? Have I just now finished off my dates? Where am I at, at the moment in my cycle during the month? So many a times you would know the answer automatically that, yeah, in a few days, maybe I'm about to go on my cycle and it's the hormones, playing up. So I need to put things into perspective. Maybe there was no need for me to amplify so much. It wasn't a big deal. I could have brought it up. This could have been brought it up at a later stage, whereby both the parties were ready to communicate as an adult. So yeah, so that's how women feel. They amplify, it's a build up. The main problem is not that big. So if a man wants to minimize a woman, these are a few things he needs to, do with her. Give her reassurances, make her feel safe, make her feel loved, make her feel wanted, make her feel heard. And when all that built up is out of our system, trust me, we're such powerful women. We laugh on ourselves. Because at the end of it, it's all out of our system. It's gone. It was a non-issue. It becomes a non-issue for us. Do you understand? All we wanted was that little hug and a peck on the cheek, perhaps. That was all that we wanted. And now it's just become non-issue. And we're ready to come back together and then go forward, to combat bigger challenges in life. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is created as very, very powerful. Alhamdulillah. So don't undermine your authority in your own mind. Don't look for external validation. Think about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you as a mum. He's given you womb. Men can't produce children. On the day of judgment, the child, is going to be called by the mum's name 3 times and 1 time by the father's name. And Allah knows best. I could be going wrong. My facts with Deen are not that great, but yeah. So, but definitely I know that they'll be called by their mum's name more times as opposed to the dad's name. So that's the identity, the state, the maqam of a woman that Allah has given already to us. So why do we look outside for validation? I don't understand. You understand? So yeah. So far, all good. We're on the same page. Everybody enjoying, liking it. Makes sense?
Absolutely. I'm very engaged and it is very interesting so far.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. So then we move forward. Now we talk about men. How are they wired? So for men, less is more. Okay, they want to disconnect, they want to feel good by problem solving, they want to use their logic, their reasoning, they want to analyze, because that's from where, when they solve problems, that's from where they, they get their boost of testosterone. They need to feel a sense of achievement. And that's the reason most of the times, men try to pick up on this cat and mouse chase with you, and they try to have the last word, because that's what gives them a sense of achievement. Yes, that's where they get the kick of testosterone kick. But the thing is, we need to, at that point in time, or they need to understand that, who are we trying to have a one-upmanship against? Our own spouse, our other half. It's we now, it's not me anymore. So if that sense of ownership towards your spouse, your wife is there, then they won't try to, seek that sense of achievement by having a one-up on their wife. They'd rather disconnect at that point in time and go and do something else. But many a times and what happens is, a woman at that point in time feels, oh, he wasn't bothered, he didn't give me much importance, he wasn't even willing to listen. But that's not what it is. He just wants to be disconnected, to feel good. He will come around, he will come back when he's ready. He has taken your point, on board, but give him that space now. Let him go, disconnect, use his logic, use his mind, use his brain, even if that means he's on the phone playing games. Most of the times we're like, oh, that wasn't that important for him, and I'm so hurt and upset, and he's just gone sonning away, playing games on his phone. Well, he needs to use his logic and reason. At that point in time, playing game is just distraction for him from this big fiasco that you've created. That doesn't mean he's not even thinking, to be fair, that whether you're hurt, you're upset. No, all he's thinking is he wants to disconnect, he wants to move away, he wants his space to think rationally and feel that sense of achievement, and let those testosterons kick inside his body. Unless those hormones don't kick in, he will not be able to calm down. That's the role that our hormones play, put us in a happy place, calm us down. So give them the opportunity to calm down, let those testosterons kick in the mind and the body, and let them think rationally before they come back to you. Yeah. Okay. So now, why do relationships essentially go sour? They go sour because of these reasons that we've already covered, that we don't understand which adult ego, which ego state is the other person using, right? And they don't understand which ego state we as women are using. Obviously, we both come from different backgrounds. One of us may come from, a safer, nurturing parenting background. The other person may be coming from a more authoritarian parenting background. And so from the beginning, there is a mismatch of expectations, because they've learned to receive love in a dismissive and avoidant way. Hence, they will be giving out love to you and their children and the family members in a dismissive and avoidant way. So before you get married, you need to understand, look into these things at a deeper level. It's about two families coming together. It's not about two people only marrying each other, specifically in our South Asian communities. So explore deeper, what kind of relationships do they have amongst each other as siblings, do they have with their parents as well, and vice versa. Okay, so unmet expectations are the first thing because of which the relationships go sour. And why would expectations be unmet? Clearly, because the communication is broken. There's a gap there, right? Promises would be broken. Because of that, there'll be loads of conflicts, and then each one of you wouldn't have the ability to handle each one of these things properly within your relationship, right? As I mentioned already, that maybe the expectation that has been unmet, or the promise that has been broken, wasn't that big, but because there's a build-up in within us from over weeks or months or years, if you like, then when we get the chance, we just throw fire out like a cannonball and make it look like it's really big, although it wasn't. If there's a fair enough reason for you to go out of proportion like that, then that's fine. However, still try and use your adult ego to weigh it all out, because every time you're trying to hammer onto your relationship, what's happening is that gap of communication between those hands is just going bigger and bigger and bigger. Nobody's stopping you from communicating. Nobody's stopping you from relaying your expectations clearly to the other person, and they have to listen to you. If they've married you for the sake of Allah, if they're true to the cause, they will listen to you. But then again, there's an adab of communication as well. Both parties need to be ready. So don't just try to, pin him down by hammering straight away, because what happens is the communication gap is growing bigger. Even after later on, when you come together, become intimate, this, that, the other, life moves on, and so will you. But that gap still remains there. It's not, it's not being bridged until and unless you put in a lot of hard work into it, and vice versa, for it to then, keep bridging, and the gap to be bridging rather than going further apart. Okay. Yeah. So then we're all entering into a relationship with an ideal, relationship in mind. We're all ready to be happy and be in a win-win situation, have fun, experience, success, experience a fantastic relationship or an ideal relationship, whatever that it may be in our minds. That's what we're expecting, without yet actually even letting the other person know what does success look like to you. You're just going in it deluded, thinking that's what you think, that's what you're going to get. Well, hang on a minute, you haven't told him, you haven't discussed with him yet what success looks like to you. Perhaps for him, success is totally the opposite. You understand? Where do you go from there? So what happens then? You've gone in the relationship thinking success looks all about having fun and being wooed, being loved, being taken care of, being heard all the time. And what happens when the other person has also gone into the relationship with you, but you now find out that they're not who you think they were? Because many times people are wearing masks as well, So, and then the next very important point here is what about when they fail to deliver on something they've promised to do? So they've broken a promise. Then again, what if the hurt to you that broken promise is brought is like really deep, but then for them it's not something big, they'll just come across as though it wasn't even big for them. So does that mean that they're acting mean or they're selfish? No, it just means that they're approaching that conversation through a different ego state. So it's not a complimentary conversation, it's a cross-transactional conversation that you guys are having there. One person is wearing an adult ego hat, or maybe a nurturing parent ego hat, and the other person is wearing a rebellious child hat at that point in time. So you need to give each other that space for him to move out and use his logic, get his testosterone in the right place, and for you to minimize yourself, and be heard if that's what you want. You need to give in order to get. That's how it works. So yeah, this is a very common situation that, when they blow it off and they don't acknowledge as though it was something really big, and you feel as though it's really, put you in a bad stead, this can really push your buttons and create even more frustration, because there's a complete mismatch of expectations there. So why that is happening, essentially because there are no relationship goals between you and themselves. And why there aren't relationship goals? Because you don't know what to expect essentially from a relationship. And why do you not know what to expect essentially from a relationship is because you need to ask yourself, what is your relationship like with your own self, right? Do you value yourself? Are you acknowledging yourself? Are you looking for validation from within, or you're looking for validation from outside? If you've given yourself a certain standard of living throughout the years that you've been single, then obviously you know what makes you happy. You know what your value systems are. You would know what your belief system is. You would know these are your negotiables. These are your non-negotiables. Because if these 3-4 things which are your non-negotiable values, if they're not prevalent in a relationship, then there is no relationship. So you have to ask yourself these questions, and there are loads more, which inshallah I will be showing you, as we go along, but just being very mindful of the time as well. So that's what essentially happens, that you don't know what to expect in a relationship because you've never considered yourself to be important, and then you're expecting others to give you importance. So that means you're beginning, you're starting from the wrong foot anyway. So what you need to ask yourself is, what is in it for me in that relationship? Is this person going to be able to give me exactly what I am able to give to myself? Because I'm in a good stead now, wherever that I am, I'm living my life according to my values, based on my principles. Am I now willing for somebody to come and disrupt that balance? And if yes, then how much disruption am I willing to take on? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself. What is in it in this relationship for me that's so glamorous that I can't give to myself? And then this person, when they come on board, they're going to complement me. Okay, that's the key word here. They're going to complement me, who I am. And what is my relationship with Allah? That's a very important question as well that you need to ask yourself. So if you're safe and secure in these two areas, relationship with Allah, relationship with yourself, then that means you're in a good stead. Your confidence levels are higher, your self-esteem is high, you're living a life according to your principles and value system. You know what you want, you know what you will want, you will be willing to expect in a relationship. Okay, so if you're clear about that, then that's the start. Then you would know how to set goals and move forward. Okay, and they walk into yeah, so exactly. And similarly, the other person wouldn't know what to expect either, because they might have not put themselves in a in a good stead. They probably are in a low self-esteem situation themselves. And what happens then is, if you're in a low self-esteem, you're vulnerable, you're attracting vulnerability towards yourself. So both of you are vulnerable, and you're going in this relationship blind, thinking it's going to work out, thinking, hoping, wishing, expecting, dreaming for it to work out, just because this person knows me so very well. No, he doesn't know you very well. He knows your vulnerability very well. Do you understand? Because they've been there themselves, and now they've become rebellious. They know it's wrong. They know they didn't deserve this. They know they didn't want to be treated. They didn't deserve to be treated like this, but they have. And now they've been conditioned to give out love in the same manner. So many a times when a perpetrator is causing damage to you, they're not doing it consciously. It's their parent ego hat that they're operating from constantly. So they need therapy for the relationship to work. They need mediation. They need therapy. They need to work on themselves. If they do, then khalas, inshallah, relationship can develop into a stronger one, and definitely each one of you need Allah, more of Allah in your life. But if the other person is constantly going wrong and not willing to admit where they're going wrong, then clearly nothing can be done. Then you, sisters, need to learn to cut your losses. Okay, damage limitation strategies that you need to start working on. But don't work on it all in your mind. You need to be explicit. You need to tell them, look, this is where you're going wrong. This is what I can accept, and this is what I will not accept. That's where your healthy boundaries come in. You have to set a benchmark. You have to set a line there, a borderline there, because that's your safe space. You can't let other person keep on pushing you into gaslighting, and rather than using your potential and creativity, and in raising righteous children, you're just thinking, I surely know what I said and did was not wrong, but that's what he's saying, it's wrong, and that's how he's making me feel. And yeah, he's got his bargain chip as well, whereby I really am thinking maybe I am wrong. You don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to let the other person come into your safe space and your boundary. You don't want to be in a gaslighting situation at all. This is your safe space. You've lived your life successfully so many years without them, right? So now if they're coming in your life, rather than complimenting you, trying to make you rethink about your own value system and your belief system that you've brought forward, growing older, then you need to stop there, and you need to ask them to stop there, because that's trespassing. That's not even on the table for a discussion. Nobody can second guess your values if you've set them right. Nobody can, trespass into your safe boundary. Now, once if you let them do this, that's it. They've got an easy way out of it. You understand? So think twice, have your values in place. If you've not had them before, think about them now. I'm going to be, inshallah, sharing this presentation with Sister Fatima. I don't think we'll have much time to cover the questions. She can perhaps share the presentation, inshallah, for the benefit of all of you. And then you can go through the questions that I've mentioned in there. That's going to help you understand the pattern, how it all works. And more than focusing on anybody else, focus on yourself. What do you want? What are your patterns? How can you develop your own self? Inshallah, those questions are going to be helpful, right? Yeah, okay. And in their minds, they want to believe that the person they are in relationship with that will automatically know. Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, the communication needs to be very, very clear. The expectations need to be explicitly mentioned to the other person. Don't get upset and hurt over something that you've not clarified to them, and you're just thinking, oh, they're good at telepathy, but they're not. They're not. They're just humans like you, unless you haven't told them something to be done. And if it's not done, then don't assume. We need to stop assuming. That's a big thing in our culture. Again, we assume too much, we generalize too much. But in the English culture, they're very crisp and sharp. They'd pinpoint things down. And why I'm saying that specifically is based on my own experience, because I'm now remarried to a white revert. Yeah. So the way that he processes information and shares information is very crisp, very to the point about it. Not saying that I agree with it, but I agree with the approach that he takes. And I'm a total Pakistani. I just layer it on thick, and I'll become a big cannonball and just throw it on him, and then I'll walk away for 4 days. I wouldn't even talk. So, as a professional, I shouldn't be mentioning these things to you, but perhaps I'm in my midlife crisis. So I give myself that, and I'm not going to beat myself up too much. This is also part and parcel of growing up and growing older together as a couple. That when I'm doing that, he just knows it's one of those. She'll be fine in a few days, and yeah, he'll give me my space. And the alpha male kicks into me at that point rather than him needing space. He becomes the woman at that point, and he just wants to have the last word, and he wants to flare up, and I would flare up, and then I would just want my space. And then when we both come back together, alhamdulillah, many a times we come back for the good. Many a times I feel as though the gap is still there and it's never been bridged. So from my personal experience, I'm telling you that be mindful, pick your battles. Okay, moving forward, it's important to give and offer value. Of course, in any relationship, you need to give out value in order to attract more and even more value. Specifically in your close knit relationships, doesn't work otherwise. So we should enter relationships. Yeah, we've covered that already. That we need to know what are our expectations from our own selves, and negotiables and non-negotiables, before we can then explicitly, share them with the other person. And most often, this is the reason why marriages fail, because the non-negotiables are not very, very explicitly clarified or relayed to the other person. Okay, so now, subhanAllah, we're almost there now. These are your intense relationship questions, how many slides are these? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's not too bad then. Perhaps we can cover them here. And maybe you sisters can, take snapshots of the questions. And then you can mull over them yourself and help other sisters as well who are looking to get married. These are very important questions. Whilst you're being married, whilst you are in a relationship, and then again, whilst you're exploring to get married, these questions are very important. And there are loads more, which I haven't added onto this one because, of course, I'm being mindful of the time, and also that I cover as part of my own programs with my clients. But yeah, feel free to take snapshots of these questions. They're very, very important for you to, explore when you're looking to get married. So the first one being, do they have a relationship with God? Do you have a relationship with God? Keep yourself in the other person's shoes as well. So when these are cause and effect questions, ask the same questions, to yourself as well. So what are your spiritual beliefs? How much time can you spend with your own self? What is your patience level like? How much time can you spend with this person that you're getting to know? Do your personalities connect? Is this relationship a good fit for you? How much can I take if the person has habits that irritate me? Again, can you see how much it's important for yourself to know yourself in order to be able to answer these questions? So yeah, and then how vulnerable can I be in this relationship? So what that essentially means is, am I safe in this relationship? Can I be open and honest? Or I have to think twice that if I gave them some personal information, they may well use it at another point, to put me or to make me more vulnerable. So it's all about safety and security here. Will the other person allow me to become vulnerable and transparent? Most of the times, people have been there themselves and they haven't been able to heal and deal with those situations. They're all closed up and closed in, and they wouldn't allow you to become vulnerable and transparent because they're just maybe in love with the what would I say, the concept of love. They just love you for who you come across apparently, and they don't want to know anything beyond that, so they just deluded. Yeah. So is the person vulnerable and transparent with me? Yeah, you need to know that. Do we have anything in common with each other? Can I have a decent conversation with him without it ending in an argument? If we do have an argument, am I able to decipher which ego state did they use, which ego state did I use, and how could have I minimized the conversation? How could they have, behaved in a better way so that even if we did end up in an argument, we could have perhaps done it in a way whereby we were agreeing to agree or disagreeing to disagree in a more respectable manner. Then again, will they accept and love me if I say no to what they want me to do? Because most of the times we're insecure, we're just trying to please our other half. We dare not do anything against them because we know that that little, drip feed of love that we get from them, even that's going to stop. So my question to you would be, why would you even be longing for that drip feed of love? Why again are you looking for external validation? As opposed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask him for love. He's going to give you abundant love. He's going to give you everything that you want. And he's more closer to you than your jugular vein. And he loves you probably 70 times more than even your own mother. So why don't we make that our safe space, our space for self-acceptance rather than relying on external validation? Then you need to ask yourself, am I too selfish? Because many a times we've suffered so much that we close up ourselves, and then many a times there's not much left in ourselves to give out to another person who's deserving and worthy of it, and we become too selfish, right? And then ask this question: if the other person is being too selfish as well, if yes, then what are the reasons why? What was their upbringing like growing older? So these are the few questions that you need to, inshallah, ask yourself. Oh, there's more. Okay, yeah. Do I like this person? What does like mean like to you? Liking may mean one thing to you. Liking may mean another thing to your potential spouse. So be very clear about that as well. Do I really love this person, or am I in love with the idea of being in love with this person? So am I just in awe of their aura of who they are? Have I even delved deeper to understand their culture, their belief systems, their values? Who are they? How are they parented, and so on and so forth? And then again, does this person really love me? So we need to be mindful of all these things.